Welcome to Leader You by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Successful organizations are dependent on people being competent in their job. To prepare people to do the work, we must prepare them according to the skills, knowledge, and abilities required for the job correctly and consistently. One of the services Black River offers is evaluating employee and candidate competencies. Our 25 competency assessment focuses on the soft skills, or what we like to call them, essential skills. Our competency assessment is used for more accurate hiring practices as well as for staff development. Every organization could use these competencies to ensure an individual's skills match the soft skills required by the job, to nurture the right talent, to improve productivity, and to develop dynamic leaders. For a sample of the 25 leadership competencies, definitions, and assessment, email us at info@blackriverpm.com. Thank you for joining the Leader You podcast today. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Douglas Tsoi. JD. He is the co-founder of the Appreication Effect, a platform that he allows users to create a daily feed of gratitude and recognition for loved ones from their family and friends. He also runs the Gratitude Dojo, 12 research-based and heart-centered practices for recognize all the good there is in your life, even in times of insecurity and instability. A former lawyer, Quaker school teacher, and entrepreneur, Douglas is a Franciscan spiritual director. Douglas's mission is to help people participate in grace. Appreciation is a grace manifesting through our loved ones, connecting us in a web of meaning, joy, and connection. Douglas also teaches personal finance as a path to financial and personal liberation. You can find him on the popular Substack newsletter, Meaning and Meaning, where he writes about the intersection of personal finance and spirituality. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Douglas. I'm really excited about our topic today about appreciating others. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Angie. It's a real privilege to be here.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I had you on the podcast is because I would say about 4 or 5 months ago, I learned about you through MEA, Chip Conley's. You had put out an article I had read, and so I was interested. We ended up having some Zoom conversations, and you shared your research and your Appreication Effect website and what that's all about. And so it's one of the things that we really value, joy and connection, and really bringing fuel to people in the workplace. And so I think it's a great fit for our listeners to understand the actual competency of appreciating others. And it is a skill that can be built, and it can be enhanced at any point. So tell us a little bit more about how you got to this place, your story.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm the co-founder of the Appreication Effect, and story behind it is my co-founder, Drew Schroeder, and we were colleagues at Challenge Success, which is a nonprofit based out of the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University. And it focuses on health and well-being for students. But, obviously, because we're really focused on health and well-being for students, we're also had an internal emphasis on health and well-being of our own staff. So during the pandemic, we usually get together. We're actually a remote team. We were supposed to get together for our annual team retreat, but because of the pandemic, we were unable to do so. So we had to do their team retreat online. So for my part of the retreat, what I did is I asked everyone to write an appreciation note for everyone else on staff, actually including themselves. So there were 16 of us. So you had to write an appreciation note for 16 other people. And typically what happens in these exercises is, I collate them and I give you 16 appreciations all at one time. And you think, oh, that's really nice. And you put it away. But instead, what I did was I sent one appreciation out per day for each of my colleagues for 16 straight days. So it lasted a little over 3 weeks. And a couple things came out from that. Well, first of all, when you're appreciated for 16 straight days, it becomes liminal space, right? Like it's very different than getting 16 notes at the same time. Instead, you're spending 16 days. And it's so funny because my colleagues would say, I would look forward to getting the next note. But for 3 weeks, you know, I was seeing myself as my colleagues saw me, right? So that brings up the second thing, which is you don't really see yourself um, as who you are until you see what other people see about you. So in 16 days, themes emerge, right? Like all of a sudden you start seeing your gifts in ways that you never saw before because one, they were blind to you, or two, you just thought they were normal. But if you spend 3 weeks thinking about what's special about you and what you bring to work and you feel seen, that creates a very different experience. So being appreciated by others, the gift of being seen is really seeing your own gifts. And I think that's one of the, greatest things that a organization can do for an employee. So at the end of that, we took a survey because we're a research-based institution. And what we found is nearly everyone experienced more meaning in their work, more connection with their colleagues, and more internal joy. So I asked Drew, my co-founder, but my colleague at the time, hey, can we automate this? Because I just did this manually by hand. And he's a systems guy. So he's like, yeah, we can do this. And so we built a platform called the Appreication Effect that's been running for 2 years. And basically what you do is you put in someone's name and email into our system, and we spit you back a link. And you share that link with all that person's friends or colleagues, loved ones, family, and everyone writes appreciation notes for them. And then our system will send out one appreciation per day for as long as it lasts. And so, we've had hundreds of campaigns and maybe 10,000 notes written over the last couple of years. Our goal is to get to 1 million notes. Most of our campaigns are for friends and families and loved ones, like siblings or parents or spouses. We've had a few organizational campaigns, and it's just sort of amazing to see what people write to each other. We can see it on the back end. It does more meaning, more connection, and more joy. So, that's what we're here to talk about today.
It's incredible work. And it just brings me so much, it actually brings me joy to think about people having that experience at work and in their lives. It actually brings tears to my eyes because I see so many people that don't feel appreciated and they don't feel seen or heard. And that's the biggest problem that we're facing right now is the loneliness and lack of connection. It's just, you can't get enough of the being seen right now. So I love the work that you're doing. And that's how, I don't know how we work together, whether our listeners start using it, whether we start using it at Black River, and just getting people to have this experience at work where they start to see themselves through the eyes of others. And you're right. I think we're our own worst critics. And some people aren't even really good at taking a compliment. So getting in the practice of taking a compliment or being appreciated is actually a skill to build.
Yeah, you've said like 5, 6 different things in there that are really, really relevant. I mean, we see tremendous potential for the appreciation effect to be used in the workplace. Based on the research that's already being conducted in the field. Like, first of all, Google, in their enormous 2-year study internally about team performance, they found that the number one indicator of team performance is psychological safety, right? Like feeling that you're okay, you're seen, you're appreciated in the workplace, right? It increases resilience, it increases team learning, it creates more creativity. Fundamentally, we're human in the workplace, and to show up at work means to show up as who you are emotionally, right? And you can't really show up at work unless you feel safe. And so, that's one of the big things with the appreciation effect. another thing you're pointing out is people feel really lonely, especially remote work, right? And this is
Mm-hmm.
our project started in the pandemic with remote work.
Mm-hmm.
And 79% of employees leave their jobs because they don't feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's the number one reason people leave. It's not because it's not enough pay or they're not challenged. It's they don't feel appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So there's tremendous. I mean, there are tremendous uh, hard hard reasons to or concrete reasons to do appreciation, and then there's the whole soft side of it, right? Like, how do your employees feel at work? And one of the things we'd love to do is start coaching leaders and managers. Like, what's the experience that you want your employees to have? Who's the person you want to be in the workplace?
Yeah, because knowing and doing are two different things. We all know people want to be appreciated, but does that mean we're acting? We're taking action. We like to get a bunch of knowledge, and then it's just like our diet and our exercise. We all know what to do, but does that mean we practice it?
Yeah.
And there's that disconnect that you have to have the action piece, not just the knowledge. Like, we know people want to be appreciated, so how do you implement that? What are your skills of appreciating others? So my husband has mentioned this in many workshops that he's done, and he's like, it's not my normal go-to thing. And so I actually have to work at it. He's like, I'm a very compassionate and kind person, but he has to think about telling people or writing a letter or doing those things because it's just not in his normal behavioral style. And so I think that's a really good thing to think about is, do you often appreciate others? Is it a normal daily habit, or do you really have to think about it? And if you do, then it's a skill that probably needs to be enhanced.
Yeah, I think about it as like creating a culture of gratitude. It's like not enough to like at the holiday party or the quarterly meeting to say, hey, this person did a great job, but how do you create a culture of gratitude that everyone's doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the really amazing things that we found is that when you see a gift in someone else and you tell them, you're not only elevating it in them, but amazingly, you're elevating it in yourself, right? Like
Absolutely.
if you see like, oh, this teammate really supported this other person, and you appreciated it in them, you're actually appreciating it. Appreciate has like a number of really interesting meanings, but you're making it grow in them, and you're making it grow in yourself.
Yeah.
So, I use that word recognize, to recognize, to see again, right? Um, yeah, when you see someone else's gifts, you're actually it's a mirror for yourself and what you have in yourself too.
Absolutely. I love that. So when you talk about a different meanings of appreciation, tell us more a little bit about that.
Yeah, so appreciation has like three really fun, interesting meanings. First of all, it's like recognizing the good in someone, right? But then there are two other ones. One is having a full understanding of the situation, right? Like, oh, I fully appreciate what you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the implication there is until you appreciate something, you don't really understand the full situation. And the last one is about growth. We're all interested in growth, right? Like a bank account, right? Like your money appreciates when you save and invest, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
appreciation is also about investing in your employees.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is an investment that is worth, well, it's always about people. But sometimes we get caught on the numbers and the bottom line. And when I'm working with people, organizations, sometimes I see that is the focus. And if we can get back to the people and the appreciation, the profits generally follow the appreciation and the culture that the people are in. It's generally a direct result. If you're focused on your people, they focus on your customers. And there's research to support that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how you treat your employees is how your employees will treat their customers.
Yep. And
I mean, you can't expect it any other way, right?
right. So if you're appreciating your employees, they're appreciating their job. They're appreciating working for you as a leader. They appreciate the organization, and it shows up and they mirror that same kind of behavior to the clients or, the stakeholders and everyone alike. So I'm just I'm just fascinated by all the work and with students too, because I think it's if when you're doing this in a younger environment and you're kind of teaching a culture and helping younger people to understand their gifts and their kind of their purpose of in life. I mean that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out is what are our gifts and how do we navigate the world? How do we develop those gifts, and then how do we eventually give those gifts away?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, as leaders and managers and organizations, we're creating a world for others, right? Like we spend about half or even more of our lives at work. And
Mm-hmm.
so the environment that we create at work matters for people's health and well-being. But not only that, like what the culture you bring at work, people bring home too, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're teaching their kids, they're living with their spouses, right? Like they're doing it in their communities. And so one of the things I think about is this idea, like, what is the world that we want to create together? And like, for me, the answer as a spiritual director is I want to create a world that's filled with gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I want, and I want people to feel appreciated and loved and joyful at work. At Black River, we say that work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it.
Mm,
And I think gratitude, joy, and appreciation is a big part of fueling someone's spirit. And then when you fuel their spirit, they take it home. Um,
exactly. And it's interesting because I mean, especially since the pandemic, work has felt draining for so many people,
mhm,
right? And part of it is, ironically, we're looking at a video screen. So much of it is we're disembodied, right?
mhm,
Like we're so much into our heads, um, and we're not feeling the rest of the sense of aliveness that our body provides for us. So I think gratitude and appreciation brings this ability to actually feel what's happening in
mhm.
ourselves and with others.
Absolutely. So, what are some tips you would give for like learning to like obviously using the software and your website as the platform to make it actually a practice is highly recommended, right? I'm going to totally recommend that because that it kind of makes it easy for you to do as an organization or as a leader. Then the work on the back end is done. But what are some other ways that you have seen through what your research and what you've done that people have appreciated others at work? What does some of that look like?
I think one of some of the prompts that we ask people is when you're thinking about the person you're writing a note for, what is the thing that you see in them that is unique? What is the thing that you think that they wish they would hear?
Mm,
Um, and what is the thing that you admire about them that you want to see in yourself, right? That's always the first step. The second step is always give an example. Like when you did this, it meant this, right? Like it gives a context and sort of anchors what you're saying about them into a real life experience. And then thirdly, the third element of a good appreciation is what does it mean to you as the appreciator? Thank you for doing that because it means that like it makes my job easier
mm-hmm.
or that it makes my day lighter, right? Um, that personal connection is really important. It's not just abstract, but it's connected to both an experience that happened and what it meant to you as an appreciator.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about significant others because I think I've mentioned this multiple times, but I think sometimes even married people are some of the loneliest people. And I think that there often that comes with a lack of feeling appreciated, kind of maybe feeling taken for granted, um, and and so I see this as a really important piece of a long-term relationship, and in making this part of the culture of your relationships is being more purposeful in appreciating your significant other and even your kids for the things that they do versus the things they do wrong according to you, right? So like what do you appreciate in them?
Well, it's funny. Do you know John Gottman at the University of Washington?
Yes,
Yeah,
the Gottman Institute.
yeah, the Gottman Institute, and they have that magic number 5 to 1,
Yeah.
right? Like, in order to maintain a healthy relationship, you want to have a ratio of 5 positive things said to 1 negative thing.
Hmm.
And I mean, that was also one of the basis of the appreciation effect. Like at work, how many times are you given critic a critique versus how many times are you told that you're doing a good job, right?
Hmm.
And I'm almost sure that most people do not receive 5 to 1.
I am too. In fact, I work with a lot of leaders that say things such as, well, you're getting paid to do your job. I don't need to tell you that you're doing a good job.
Right. That's the whole Mad Men. That's what the money is for, right?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
but fundamentally, like if you just want people to get like do the work because they get paid for it, people aren't going to stay.
No, and they're not going to care about
There's
their
tons
work.
of other choices.
There is, and they're not going to care about the work that much.
Yeah. Yeah, your good employee, your bad employees will stay for the money and your good employees will leave because they have better choices.
And yeah, they'll have way more opportunities on people that will appreciate them.
Yeah.
So this comes to, we use DISC. Are you familiar with DISC?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, it's a behavioral style that kind of figures out the differences in our preferred behaviors. So one of the things that we do in some of our workshops is we talk about appreciating others that are different from us. So let's say my husband and I, for example, I'm a high I, he's a high C. So I'm not really good at data and analytics, things like that. I'm more people oriented and communication, storytelling, this type of thing, where he brings. He's like the anchor of reality. He brings the data. He's not so much interested in the feelings. And one of the things, instead of looking at the differences and how people kind of rub us the wrong way, we really try to focus on how do you appreciate that piece in the differences, in the 4 different styles of behaviors, the D, I, the S, and the C. So we really, in our workshops, when we're teaching communication, we talk about appreciating others and their preferred communication styles and what they bring to the table, because oftentimes the people that are opposite of us that see the world through a different lens, they have skills that we don't have. And so I think it's important to take time to see how they do make your life easier, because they do like to create spreadsheets, or they do like to give public presentations, or they do, whatever it is that we don't like to do, somebody has to do it and somebody needs to be good at it. And so appreciating them and them seeing those gifts that they have, it's just another way to kind of give people some self-awareness around what they actually do bring to the table.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's also exercising yourself in empathy, right? Like exercise in seeing that other people's gifts complement yours, right? Like I remember a time when I was in the workplace, I was at the Justice Department in Washington, D.C., and there was one person that I thought was really, really annoying, right? Because they didn't have the same, I don't know, I'm just going to say like social skills I did,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were hard to get along with. But when we got to like the data crunching, like your husband, like the data crunching segment of our investigation, there were things that there was no way, only I could not do, but I couldn't conceive of the things that he had imagined that we needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's all a function that we're different people and we bring different gifts to the workplace.
Absolutely. And just taking some time to really not just appreciate, recognize it. I think appreciation is you have to recognize it, right? It's an action. It's
Yeah.
not a thought. Oftentimes
Yeah.
we think about it, but we have to be able to put action to it.
Yeah. It's again, it's seeing the world anew with the eyes of gratitude.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Seeing the world anew with the eyes of gratitude. I saw something the other day in Harvard Business Review too about empathy. Empathy plus action equals compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved that, because I think we all think we're empathetic, but does that mean we act on it, right? We can feel how see how that would feel, but how do we act on it?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Like, I think of appreciation and appreciation effect. Um, Do you know about Thich Nhat Hanh's idea of interbeing?
No.
Inter Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Buddhist teacher, talked about interbeing as I am who I am because of you are who you are. We depend on each other, right? And so, my gifts come out because of you, and your gifts come out because of me. And that's the whole point of an organization, right? Like things happen, not only like we produce things that could never happen if we were working individually, but we become because we're together.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that. Thanks for bringing that up. That's awesome. Do you feel so you've got quite a background? A spiritual teacher, a lawyer, all of this. So it's kind of a windy road that's got you here. Do you feel like you're living in your purpose now?
And I think yes, and the amazing thing is, so I'm Quaker, and so one of the things Quakers believe is this idea of continuing revelation. The truth is continually revealed to you. So like there is no like my sense of mission when I was 28. I wrote a mission statement for my life, which says I want to help people learn and feel closer to their communities. And that's totally true. And it's been true ever since last couple decades. And at the same time, I want myself and everyone to experience growth in their sense of purpose and mission too. Like as we grow, the truth of your mission and your purpose will also grow too.
Yeah. We have to leave room for that when we're
Yeah.
designing purpose statements or thinking, as life evolves, so do we. And we have to have that flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I would feel sad if I still had the same mission statement as I did 2 decades ago, and nothing in between had caused me any growth.
Right. Yeah. So have you updated it now to a new one, or is it just evolving?
Yeah, I'm playing with a second mission statement. I recognize the essential truth of that first mission statement 2 decades ago, which was I want to help people learn and feel closer to their communities. But as I've grown into this work around appreciation, and I do a lot of work around economic justice and spirituality, I'm playing with a new mission statement, which is I want to help people participate in grace.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is grace abounds around us. In fact, my Franciscan teacher told me, we're surrounded by grace, we're drenched in it, and all we have to do is participate. And so, Appreciation Effect and the Gratitude Dojo, which is the 12 research-based gratitude practices, they're just ways for people to participate in grace, understand all the gifts we have all around us.
I love that. One of the things that my friend and I have been using is the term hold space and give grace.
What does that mean?
That means to try to just show up and give people the space to be seen or heard or feel their emotions wherever they're at, and not try to fix it for them. Just not try to problem solve. And I will tell you, this is a practice for me. I failed miserably the other day with my daughter because I went into instant fix it mode, and so I have to really get into a practice of just holding the space and giving grace for them to be wherever they are without trying to fix it, and I think it takes work because we don't like people's pain, and so when we see other people in pain, we would just go into like trying to fix it, make it better. But I think what people really need is just that space and the grace to just be and sit with it.
Yeah, that's so touching. So, I just got trained as a Franciscan spiritual director, and one of the things they talk about in spiritual direction is that, well, how do I put this? You're there to witness and welcome all emotions. And, once someone feels witnessed and welcomed, whatever they're feeling, they can change however they want. But you're right. It's a continuing practice for me. Like really, truly, just loving and witnessing whatever is coming up without having to change it. That's the magic,
Yeah.
right? Like instead of trying to force a change in emotions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so I do a lot of coaching on emotional intelligence, and it's getting granular with those emotions, like helping people to express, 50 shades of anger. There's a lot of words for it. It's not just pissed off. Like there's, resentment, jealousy, anger, disturbed. Like if you really, when you really start to get granular with the words and name them, you can tame them, because the research shows that in Brene Brown's research, only 3 emotions came up consistently, which were mad, sad, and glad, the mad, sad, glad triad. And so people don't even have the language to describe how they're feeling, and 2/3 of the population is walking around just unable to identify their emotions, what it is and why they're feeling that way. So this is another piece of where we need to start to practice improving our emotional intelligence vocabulary and what we're feeling, so that we can get rid of move past those feelings.
Yeah, you know what you're doing, Angie. You're bringing people home to themselves.
Love that. And that's a gift.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what we're all here to do. Not all of us are here to do that for someone. All the listeners that are here, if they can just give space and hold grace and help people be able to show their authentic emotions, feel seen, feel heard, feel appreciated, the world would be a lot better place.
Yeah, and especially, it's easy to show up and hold space when things are good. It's in the most difficult moments, right? And it's in their suffering, or it's in death. It's the most difficult and the most joyous and most important. Ram Dass says we're all walking each other home.
I love that. Yeah. Whoa, we're getting deep. I love it. Deep stuff here. That's what comes out when you start appreciating people, and when you start seeing the human as the human and not about the job they're there to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually another really interesting facet of the appreciation effect. People have been using it during times of grief. So like, when someone gets a really bad health diagnosis, or someone has experiences of death in the family, people have been using appreciation effect to support them, because what happens is, when something happens, everyone is there to support them. Usually the grief and the trial lasts far longer than people's ability or awareness to support the person. And so by stretching it out, again, creating interstitial liminal space, the support lasts just much longer.
Absolutely. I can see how that would be, a very important piece of it. I'm just blown away by some of the kind of aha moments that I'm having today. I don't know, it's kind of like a spiritual thing today. Just like, wow, this is where we need to be. This is exactly what people need to hear. And I think we get so bogged down on what we have to do. We get on the hedonic treadmill of life, and we forget the important things, and keeping those important things first, because we have so many things to check off on our to-do list.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's about presence, right? It's about like fully showing up as you are, who you are. It's about being versus doing, right? Like, was it David Brooks talks about resume virtues versus tombstone values of virtues, right? Like, you can say all these things you accomplish in an organization, but in the end, what people are going to remember, at least employees, is how they felt at the organization.
Absolutely. And I'm in the second half of life now, so I'm really not interested in building my resume. I'm interested in building my eulogy, right? Like that kind of thing. I think when we get to that second phase of life, it starts to matter more. We're getting closer to the grave. And so we know it's coming. And so then it's more about what wisdom do I want to pass on? what I want is people to know that they're loved and seen and appreciated. Yeah, I couldn't be anywhere in this life without help and the love of others. So like it is important to take the time to appreciate those people that have supported you. And I want to get even better at it. Like it needs to be in my calendar daily, a certain time of the day where I do it. I've gotten better. I'm keeping note cards on my desk now so that I see them every day so that I could just write a couple of note cards, a thank you card. But I mean, if it's important to me, it needs to be in my calendar.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we'd like to do with Appreciation Effect with appreciative leaders, right? Like, how do you create practices and how do you create habits around appreciation, right? Not only for yourself and your family, but for your coworkers, and everyone around you, right? Like, how do we create appreciation and gratitude as a state of being? And it's really about habits.
Yeah. One of the ideas that comes to my mind right now is the Greater Good. Berkeley, they actually have a calendar. I think it's a happiness calendar or gratitude. I can't remember. I have it, but I can't remember the name of it, but I know it's from Berkeley. And I think that might be it's a Google calendar that you embed and then you just highlight it. So for every day, you could see something about appreciating others or something like that. I've been thinking about something like that for Black River too, just having some kind of calendar that helps keep it in people's mind and fresh. Because if it's not on your calendar, it gets washed away.
Right. Like it's that diagram of the important, unurgent things, right? And the interesting thing is almost everything that is important on some level is non-urgent. But if you don't do them, they'll never happen. Can I share something with you? I don't know if you want to put in the podcast, but I just love it so much. So do you know a ChatGPT, the new AI? So it's been happening, I think, since November of last year, but they put out a new AI machine where you could just type in a question, and this AI machine will collate essentially the world's knowledge and provide you an answer. So it's like the next level after Google. I asked the chat or the AI machine ChatGPT the question, "What is our deepest desire?" And it replied, "Our deepest longing is to feel connected, to feel loved, and to be accepted. We all want to feel like we belong, that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to be accepted for who we are and have unique gifts and talents appreciated. We want to feel that we're connected to others in meaningful ways, that we are loved, that we're seen and we're heard. We strive for a sense of purpose and meaning in our lives and to know that we matter and make a difference."
Wow.
That is like the world's knowledge of what is our deepest longing, right? And that's fundamentally what we're all trying to do in improving organizational health, right? Feel like having people feel like they belong to something bigger, to feel appreciated, that they have gifts, to have a sense of purpose, and that we make a difference.
It's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that. I need the link to that, and I want to put it in the podcast too, and even in your bio. So that's really, really impressive. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. I think that's a tool that many people will benefit from. And just you sharing the question that you put in there and the response you got. That's awesome. So we're at the point where I'd like to have you share your wisdom on appreciation, things you wish you'd known, things maybe you've learned the hard way, or just gifts for our listeners.
Whew. I mean, we've covered so much. I think.
I know.
Well, I think one of the first things I would say is, and it's like the hardest thing, but we create our own experience, right? Like, so, and I mean, we also create the experience of others, but like, I have to choose an attitude of gratitude to feel grateful. Like, it's sort of cheap if I'm just waiting for good things to happen to me in order to feel grateful. But if I carry an attitude of gratitude and appreciation forward, it's actually creating the experience. So, the first question I'd ask your listeners is, what is the experience you're committed to having?
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, so I'd say the second one, let me think. Second one is probably that when you appreciate things in others, it's just a mirror for yourself, right? Like when you see the good in someone else, there's this idea that in Hindu spirituality, there is no other, right? Like when you see the goodness in others, you're seeing the goodness in yourself.
Yes, love that.
And I guess lastly, I go back to, we're talking about organizations, right? So, back to the Google's 2-year study of team performance. One of the leaders at Google, his name is Paul Santagata. He's the head of industry at Google. He said, there's no team without trust, right? And again, psychological safety is the number one factor for team performance. And so like, how do you build a culture of trust? It's like when you feel seen, safe, and cared about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's our trust model. When we talk about it, we talk about psychological safety. We talk about joy, meaningful work, and purpose. All of those are what you need to have a culture of trust.
Yeah. And it's all possible, and quite frankly, I think like if I'm a leader or a manager, what else do I want to be doing?
Exactly. What else? What's more important than that?
Yeah.
Because the work will follow if you create an environment where people can thrive, where human flourishing is the goal.
Yeah. So I would, I encourage people to use the appreciation effect in their personal lives and their professional lives. If there's an organization that wants to use it, as a team building exercise, or the gratitude dojo where we come in and we actually create gratitude stations for you at work.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage them to reach out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Your link will be on the podcast, and it is the appreciationeffect.org. .com. Okay. So be sure to check that out. And if you do, make sure that you put in there that Black River was the one you heard this through so that they can track it. Because if we're putting something out in the world, we kind of want to know where the impact is and how that shows up for people. So if you're listening to this and you use the appreciation effect, we want to know about it and we want you to tell them about it. And is this still free of charge or is there a charge on it?
Yeah, the basic service for using it, for your friends and loved ones is free. Within organizations, we have to do a little more work for you just to set it up. We'll talk about that, but organizations can use it for free if they want to do all the legwork, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll encourage them to reach out, and I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you listeners being here and supporting our podcast and sharing it. And for those of you that have actually sponsored our podcast to keep it going, I really appreciate that. I'm filled with gratitude today. I really feel like this was a meaningful conversation that many people need to hear, and you are greatly appreciated. So thank you. Do you know that Black River offers a learning management system with over 10,000 development topics? The Leader U Learning Management System is an affordable option that empowers organizations to manage and curate in-house learning development opportunities. The built-in calendar and scheduling system can be used to coordinate compliance courses such as HR Respectful Workplace and IT Cybersecurity, or lunch and learns on topics such as motivation, self-leadership, and leading more effective meetings. At Black River, we are dedicated to providing a learning solution that focuses on engaging employees in their own self and team development. Our clients use the Leader U Learning Management System to remove barriers through accessible and self-paced micro-learning content, save time with the centralized and automated training assignments, promote more meaningful team discussions, issue certificates of completion and track development efforts, and enhance and simplify onboarding efforts. Contact us for more information on our learning management system at info@blackriverpm.com.